So today we're talking about Elegant Weapons. This is a new supergroup. So let me tell you a little bit about the band first. So they are composed of Rex Brown from Pantera on bass, and then some members of Judas Priest, Richie Faulkner and Scott Travis. So they play guitars and drums. And Ronnie Romero, he is a guy he's on so many albums, and he released solo albums this year. And he seems to be on so many different releases I've seen over the past few years, but he's in Rainbow. He's the current member of Rainbow and so many other bands. So they basically came together. It was over the pandemic, but they announced that they were an official band on October of 2022. They were signed by Nuclear Blast, and they released their debut album called Horns for a Halo, produced by Andy Sneap, and released on May 26, 2023, and they released a few singles, Blind Leading the Blind and Do or Die. So I'm going to be talking about all of that, their influences, the album, and everything. So according to Richie Faulkner, the band's debut album has pretty much all of their influences, but they wanted to kind of make something with its own flavor. So Richie Faulkner mentioned some bands such as Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Rainbow, Dio, Pantera, and Metallica. You can hear all of that in this music, but it's something that's heavy, it's melodic, and the songs are catchy. So it's kind of like arena rock, but it's mixed with so much different stuff. So Elegant Weapons is a blend of heavy metal, speed metal, and classic metal. They've been compared to Judas Priest, Rainbow, Dio, Pantera. There are lots of intricate riffs, ferocious rhythms, catchy melodies, powerful vocals. Okay, so let's talk about the lineup of the supergroup. So the band in their core is Richie Faulkner on guitars, Rex Brown on bass, Ronnie Romero on vocals, and Scott Travis on drums. But you're also going to notice if you go to their website, you're going to see other members, and from what I understand, it's for touring purposes. So Rex Brown and Scott Travis are not going to be touring with the band, but they have Dave Rimmer of Uriah Heep on bass and Christopher Williams of Accept on drums. So that's the touring band. And finally, let's talk about Horns for a Halo. Debut album by Elegant Weapons, produced by Andy Sneap, released on Nuclear Blast Records, 10 tracks, 53 minutes. Lots of different influences. You got some heavy metal, speed metal, classic metal, a cover of UFO's Lights Out. I'm going to be talking about all of that. So critics have said mostly positive things about Horns for Halo. So here's an excerpt from MetalPlanetMusic.com. A pandemic conception sees the birth of Elegant Weapons, a supergroup created by Richie Faulkner of Judas Priest. The album is a product of a number of tracks recorded during the pandemic that featured a few of Faulkner's friends that also happened to be some of the finest musicians in metal. Horns for a Halo has a running time of 53 minutes and is made up of 10 tracks, including one monster at just over 7 minutes long. This is a brilliant debut album. It's heavy metal at its best. Okay, so now let's go through the tracks. So the album Horns for a Halo opens with Dead Man Walking. It's a melodic rock song, but it kind of has a little bit of a power to it. There's a little bit of heaviness. And Ronnie Romero, he just has this very powerful voice. So great opening track, and then goes into Do or Die, one of the singles. This one has a guitar riff, reminded me of classic 80s heavy metal, even a little bit of glam metal. It was technical and melodic. Kind of reminded me of the heavier songs from the band Skid Row. It had that type of attitude and lots of technical and melodic guitar playing throughout the song. Then Blind Leading the Blind is a mix of groove metal, sludge, and traditional heavy metal. And then Ronnie Romero does more of a melodic vocal style. The chorus is catchy. The song also has this arena rock quality to it. Some hints of Judas Priest in the guitar playing, which should be obvious, but overall a melodic arena rock sound. Then Ghost of You. This might be one of my favorites. It's like a dark and emotional ballad that has these bluesy guitar licks, and the lyrics are written about, someone who's no longer here or love lost or something like that. But Ronnie Romero gives an especially emotional performance. Then Bitter Pill, it's like the halfway point of the album, and I think like so far everything has been good. But this one's like a little more like sludgy and a little more groove metal in there. But it's a little slower, but it's very heavy. But it has melodic guitar solos, and it's a good album cut. And then we get to track number 6, is that UFO cover called Lights Out. I like the original song, but this one is a little heavier than the original, I guess. But it does have a lot of that late 70s, early 80s sound. It's a very catchy song, if you've heard it before. It's one of those songs that has that really catchy chorus. The band UFO has been very influential in like the heavy metal scene in general, and it has those galloping guitars that UFO was known for. And on this song, they added some keyboards, so you are going to hear some keyboards on a few of the songs. This is one of them. And then Horns for a Halo is the title track. This one was pretty cool. Another one of those like sleaze metal types of guitar riffs mixed with traditional metal and some slower and darker riffing. It's a cool song, has some traditional metal riffing and some shredding guitar solos. And then Dirty Pig, another one that reminded me of Skid Row with that 80s glam metal, but with that heavier edge. Great riffs, melodic vocals, and the last song, actually the last half of the song, they have like this breakdown. They have some pretty cool groovy guitar riffs. I like that part. Then White Horse, that's that 7-minute long epic that was mentioned earlier in that excerpt from the review. This one has more elements of like progressive rock and classic rock. I'm thinking like, like Deep Purple has that like keyboard sound as well. Lots of groovy guitar riffs, some traditional metal sounds. A part in the middle of the song has some of these like Iron Maiden style guitar riffs and a melodic solo. So that's a good one. And they close with Downfall Rising. It's one of those songs where those like dirty and like swampy types of like guitar riffs, a little bit of like sludge metal mixed with traditional and groove metal. It's a little more atmospheric because there's some more space, there's some more guitar feedback, and some really great metal vocals. So let me give my final thoughts. So I thought it was good. It was an interesting combination of musicians, like half of Judas Priest, a quarter of Pantera, and Ronnie Romero, who's been in so many different bands. But you kind of like take all of those influences, and I got something a little different than what I was expecting. So when I heard about this band, I was thinking it's going to be something similar to Judas Priest, kind of like the way like KK's Priest was a few years ago, but I thought it was more along the lines of like Skid Row, some sleazy groove metal, and all those like different influences. But also reminded me a little bit of like Rex Brown's solo album from a few years ago that was called Smoke on This. Some of the guitar riffs reminded me of that, like kind of like groovy kind of type of hard rock. So this album was recommended to me by the Fireburns Within channel. He's a big fan of it. He said it was like really great. For me, I liked it. Not completely blown away. I think I liked it a little better than the Metal Church album. My score is an 8 out of 10. But this will probably be in my next video, which will be the best metal of May. And that's coming up next. So thanks for watching. Please remember to like this. Helps me with the algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. You can stay up to date on everything I do. And comment. I like to respond to comments. And I'll put another video here that's kind of related to this. And see you in the next